Welcome to the Will and Dave Show, where we talk about hard things, whether it's comfortable or not. We think those conversations are necessary and important. We think that having different opinions is crucial to a healthy discourse. So saddle up, enjoy the fireside chat.
Hey, William.
Hey, David, how are you?
You know what? This is the one show where we just hopped on, had no preamble, had no test, and our heads are just about level. I'm a little bit more zoomed out, but you know what? It's the closest I think we've been ever.
It's pretty good, actually.
It is.
We both came into this one flying by the seat of our pants because I had an emergency that needed dealing with at home, and you slept in. You took a nap. So we were both kind of rushing to get ready.
Had a heck of a nap. We had the family over for Mother's Day, and well, except for you, of course. And we had a nap. Allison and I she was in my chair.
Kids there?
We had Alex here today and Allison here. Yes.
I wasn't sure about Megan and Chad.
And Allison had a nap. I had a nap. Your mom had a nap. And Jacob, I think, is still sleeping.
I must have missed out on that gene in the family where napping is like a pleasant thing that we look forward to. I don't like naps. Like, I'm sure that when I nap, I probably needed the rest, but I always feel worse after a nap than when I started. I wake up like an angry grizzly bear.
Naps
just
are the best.
Mad at the world.
Naps are awesome.
I'm learning that I'm a morning person, but I'm not a nap person.
Well, I'm sorry for you.
Hey, I've been enjoying my 5:30 a.m. wake ups.
I'm glad.
Oddly enough.
Speaking of Mother's Day.
Yeah, it's mi madre.
That fine lady on the right is the mother of all you handsome kids.
Back when I didn't have a mustache, had the chin strap going on.
Yeah.
We were also young.
Austin is not in the photo, but you know what? He's there in spirit, not in actual Actually, I don't know if he was there in spirit at this point yet, but
I can't remember, honestly. Honestly, he's become such a facet of the family at this point that when I think of the clan, he's become ubiquitous with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a cool word for you, ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous.
Yeah.
So happy Mother's Day, Susan.
Happy Mother's Day indeed. I feel pretty lucky as number one son, not because I'm the best, but because I'm the first, which makes me the best. Fight me over it.
I won't fight you at all.
I'm more saying that to any siblings that may or may not listen to this at some point. Yeah, I feel pretty blessed to have the mother that I have. Although I feel like...
And so you should.
This is going to be progressive Will coming out, so here's your warning.
Oh my God.
I also want to throw a special shout out on Mother's Day to people who maybe don't have great relationships with their mothers, or mothers who are having a hard time, single mothers especially. But also, if you're a single parent out there, male or female, this is a Parents' Day too. Like if you're a single dad out there, doesn't mean you don't get any love today. You can feel special too, because you're taking on both roles.
That's true. I'll give you that progressive.
Just like how single mothers on Father's Day, they also get props. Like that goes both ways. I want to be clear about that. This is a day to celebrate parents, just specifically geared towards mothers, but that doesn't mean it's exclusive. With that out of the way, I'm very grateful for my mother and for having a really good relationship with my mother.
And just because
I feel very lucky and blessed.
Yes. Your mother is the best. And I can't imagine life without her. So before we get into the meat of the show, why is that only you?
It's me. It's all me.
No, now it's not all you. But that's the wrong. I am not.
Well, we can start with that one because you got it up. Hey, if you'd like to support the show, you can go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Will and Dave Show. And for the price of a cup of coffee, you can support the Will and Dave Show as we try to grow and expand and improve the work that we do here to reach a wider audience.
On the Will and Dave Show with the wrong date on the lower third. And for our
growing and improving.
For our other sponsors on the Will and Dave Show, the podcast you really want to listen to most of the time is not the Will and Dave Show, because it's actually not a podcast anymore. It's just here on YouTube. You want to catch Measure Twice and Cut Once. Also Stitched by Susan. And if you weren't asleep before, you will be by the end of the show, because she's just that easy listening MOR. Is that what you called it? Or
ASMR?
ASMR. It'll put you to sleep. You'll be way more knowledgeable before. It's sort of like listening to Bob Ross.
Telling people that her show is going to put them to sleep isn't necessarily the best way of selling her show to people.
Yeah, but you'll have happy dreams.
This is true. And it is very relaxing, a la Bob Ross. This is very true.
It's
very cathartic.
Cathartic. That sounds like a medical procedure. Your mother's never going to want to be sponsored by our show again.
It's very pleasant. It's soothing.
It is. It is soothing.
Where our show is abrasive and hopefully makes people think a lot. Our show is much more digestible.
And the other sponsor of the show is Northern Trust, who is in Fort St. John, who employs you and is my brother. And he's just awesome because he actually listens to the show every now and then, which is more than we can say for so many
Now we're
people.
throwing them under the bus. Okay. But yes, we are sponsored by Northern Trust, building your community. They are providers of flooring and roofing packages here in the North Peace and surrounding area. They're a fantastic group of guys. Quality workmanship.
So if
I have no bias.
If you're in the market for trusses, phone Northern Trust, and I bet you don't even know the phone number, do you?
I don't, because I've never called it once in my life.
1250.
No, I take that back. I tried calling it once.
1250-787-3033, I believe. I think.
I called it once the day before I got hired because I was trying to get a hold of the owner to see when I should come in for my interview.
Because he never answers the cell phone.
Yep. He didn't answer, and the person at the office didn't know, so I just showed up the next day. Lo and behold, I got hired.
There you go. So sponsorship on the Will and Dave Show will get you lots of airtime, lots of abuse. So moving on, William, we kind of wanted to talk a little bit today about the leak of the Roe v. Wade, or the leak of the Supreme Court that they may be overturning Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, the leak of the potential ruling.
The leak of the opinion.
Roe v. Wade.
It's a leak of the opinion.
There we go. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, leak of the opinion.
Well, that's what it's called. It's called the opinion of the court. And we wanted to bring that up. And it's not about the topic of abortion, because we're the wrong people to have that conversation.
Yeah, that's not what we really want to beat to death today, because we've talked about in the past how we don't want to get too deep into the morality of abortion because we're two dudes who can't possibly experience abortion in that way. So it's kind of disingenuous for us to be talking about it as if we have any kind of authority.
Right.
But I feel like we can talk about the conversation that's happening now around this leak and around Roe v. Wade in general, rather than just the out and out morality of the whole situation.
I think you're right. And I think that more of the conversation ought to be about the ability to have the conversation.
Yes.
As I've been looking for people who are reasonable, who would join us on the show, who have an opinion about abortion and yet are able to be civil about it. They're hard to find.
It's really easy to find hardline opinions on abortion.
Yes.
They're a dime a dozen.
Usually on the extreme by the right or left of the topic.
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. Those are easy to find. I could have those on every day.
Mm-hmm.
Who would be bombastic in their approach. My way is the only way.
Mm-hmm.
It's much harder to find the one who is who is even in their approach, who are measured in the approach, because
Measured
they're
is a great
worried
word.
about the the
The fallout, the ramifications of
the
talking about it.
blowback of having an opinion about it or of having a measured opinion.
It's such a polarizing topic, and like we saw in a microcosm what those polarizing topics can do to relationships with COVID
Yeah.
and with the vaccine. And I feel like abortion is even more radioactive because it's such a long-standing point of contention. That I feel like where it's one thing to hear a family member's opinion about vaccinations and be like, "Wow, that's stupid. I don't agree with that," but you can get over it a little easier. But I feel like abortion's a little bit too deep of a wound, if that makes sense.
I
They're too
think it's more
sensitive.
polarizing as it comes from the position of human rights on one side
Hmm.
and morality on the other.
I would almost argue that it's human rights and morality on both sides, just different facets of human rights and morality, or even I could go almost as far as say it's the same human rights and morality, but they're looking at it from different sides.
Well, I
Like,
guess yes, I could agree with that. On one side, they're saying it's a human right for having an abortion. The other one is saying it's not a human right, as you're not allowed to take another life. So I guess
yeah,
it's the
yeah,
opposite ends of that coin. But it's
exactly. One is valuing the unborn life over the current life as opposed to the other way around. One is valuing the autonomy of the current life as
right,
opposed to the unborn life.
right. So we have opinions about this, and we're not going to get into our opinions, as I think, as you so
Mhm.
rightfully stated, we're a couple of dudes. I've never been called a dude before. I thought I was way too old to be a dude, but hey, I'll take the
Ah,
moniker.
dude is the perfect term. It is agender. It has no associated age necessarily. We've been using dude for decades now, so it's not just something the hip kids use. In fact, I'd say it's almost like
Not hip.
uncool to say dude,
Okay,
but it's completely agender. It's great. You can call anyone dude.
okay.
I
I'm a
love
dude.
using dude.
You're a dude.
You
I'm a
are a
dude, and
dude.
we should not be talking
You're
about abortion.
you're the dude.
There
And
you
yeah, the dudes should
go.
not be talking about abortion.
But what we are talking about is the conversation and some of the legal ramifications. Well, not the legal ramifications. The reaction
Yeah.
to this topic as it's back in the news, and
Mhm.
once again, it's being used as a political football to score points.
I
And
love that term, political football.
I don't, but it's so
I,
apt.
it is. I think what is it, West Wing that coined it, or at least for me, at least West Wing coined it.
I can't remember.
Or no, no, it was why can't I think of his name from the Daily Show? John Stewart.
Jon Stewart?
I
Oh, did he
I
coin it?
I first heard it. I first
Okay,
heard it at least when John Stewart used it in his address to Congress about the 9/11 first responders bill,
gotcha,
because he was claiming that they were using that as a political football.
gotcha. If this
Hey,
is a
history
political
lesson.
football, I think it could be the worst fumbling play in the history of politics.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Well, to start at the beginning of it, just the concept of the leak in the first place, that is a historical event. That
It it is. There have not actually had a lot of leaks in the
Mhm.
Supreme Court.
I think the last one was like decades ago,
I don't even know when the last
many
one was.
decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't remember the exact date, so I don't want to say, but it was a long time ago.
There weren't
To the
very many,
point
and
that
that's
it's
a fact.
wild.
Yes.
Mhm.
So it's not it's not a common occurrence, and for sure on these heavy topics like this one or
Mhm.
divisive topics, it's never happened. And so of course everybody is saying that it was leaked on purpose so it would affect the midterms,
Mhm.
which is which are coming up in November.
You
It's
know,
not a stretch.
if I was like, I'm going to assume that whoever leaked it, it had like this doesn't sound like an accidental leak.
Right.
So it sounds like someone purposefully leaked it. Someone's trying to be a whistleblower,
Right.
which okay. Um, whether or not that
I
person was
guess.
doing it because they have some moral compunction to do so, or because they are trying to affect the midterms. And either way, that person's career is torpedoed, and then some. I'm assuming there's jail time that's going to be attached to leaking classified documents like that. I don't know if they
Because they
are
aren't
they
classified.
classified
No,
or just protected.
they're not even protected. They just is a leak.
I
And
mean, I have to assume that everyone that works in the Supreme Court handling these documents has some like high level NDA that they signed to be in that position. So I don't know if it's jail time or
apparently,
those get sued into oblivion.
no. So apparently, and I just was reading about this the other day or watching a lawyer who it's not illegal, although it goes against the code of ethics as a lawyer, and they may lose their legal standing.
Okay. Okay.
So it's not
Yeah.
illegal, but odds are, if they are found out, they will never practice law in the U.S. of A. again because.
Right.
But what they will have is an amazing book deal and a lot of
Oh yeah.
interviews on CNN and MSNBC and all the rest.
Yeah.
So they
And
won't be
I want to.
suffering.
Yeah. I want to. How to word this? So I kind of want to work through the timeline of this whole situation as we talk about the discourse surrounding it, just so it kind of makes sense. So we've talked now about the leaker,
Right.
but the potential cause behind the leak, would be to influence the midterms, which is very possible, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does. And that's I don't like what I view as democracy as voting. I don't like that being influenced by something outside of the normal proceedings. If that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, it does.
Even though it may benefit my party theoretically, I still don't like it. I feel like it's an undeserved advantage or unearned advantage. I'd rather win fair and square. Um, but then I want to talk about how news media has been talking about it. Before we get into how people are talking about it, it's been strange watching opposing news media cover the topic.
Why is that?
Because on the left you have on the left everyone's obviously screaming about women's right to choose, bodily autonomy, yada yada yada, how this is a
Right.
regression, how we're going back to the Stone Age. And then on the right, not all, but I'd say the majority of the conversation has been about the leaking, about the the significance of the fact that a document within the Supreme Court got leaked like that, how that's a big thing. And obviously there are some people that are like, yay, infants' rights, which is fine. But I feel like the majority of the conversation has been centered around the not the criminality, but the inciting incident as opposed to the fallout thereof. And a lot of people on the left seem to take issue with that as if it's some sort of ploy to just not talk about the actual issue. I don't know how much I agree with that. I feel like it would be free money for Fox News to talk about yay, Roe v. Wade is dead, because they've been wanting it for a while, and most conservatives have been wanting it for a while. I think they're well within their. I would almost consider it good journalism on Fox's part to be focusing on the leak itself as opposed to just beating the dead horse of yay, Roe v. Wade's over, conservatives rejoice. But I think it's a shrewd move on their part because I think there's enough conservatives that are still on the fence about abortion that they don't want to alienate them.
Yeah, I think it's a nuanced approach, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that the majority of those on the right have a nuanced opinion.
Mm.
I was saying it to a friend today about it. We were talking about Roe v. Wade and abortion and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and he's a pastor, so he obviously has the religious. And he says, "Oh, I hope it
Mm-hmm.
gets overturned. Absolutely, I hope it gets overturned." And I said, the issue I have with it is not the Roe v. Wade, because I have opinions about that. It's because if you look at the talking heads on the right side of this, the majority of them are men.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the talking heads on the left angle of it, the majority are women.
Mm-hmm.
Who's playing their
That's a
cards right?
really
Who's
that's a
playing their
really
cards?
good that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
If you want to get a little bit of sympathy on the right, you may want to have a few more women as the talking heads and get rid of the Ben Shapiros
Mm-hmm.
and those on the right and say, hey, let's find the ladies who don't
Mm-hmm.
agree with abortion and Roe
And
v.
who are
Wade,
affected,
etc.
who are going to be directly affected by it.
Yes.
Us dudes
Yes.
are this is like a non-issue for guys.
Well,
Outside of how it may make our significant others feel, it's not really directly affecting us,
well,
except for maybe incentivizing us
I
to
think it is
use
an
birth control
issue.
more.
I don't think that it's not one that we ought to begin the conversation.
Hmm.
As we do have a stake in the game. It is a moral issue for some of us. It
Hmm.
is
But we don't. We have opinions and ideas, but we don't necessarily have skin in the game.
right. And I think that it's important to know that we are in the conversation, except that we're not carrying the conversation, if that makes sense.
That is a wonderfully progressive point for you to make, Dave. I
Well,
really appreciate that.
I feel that way about a lot of things, and
I
you
know.
can think about agree with it or not. Anyways, I want you to read a little bit of this for the audio.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, so I am reading through the whole opinion,
Right.
98 pages, as I want to know the facts of the opinion before I have this huge, unwieldy opinion about it.
Hmm.
And I like how they
Okay.
opened it up. And I'm going to let you read this part.
Okay. I'll read this opening statement.
Yes.
Abortion presents a profound and moral issue on which Americans hold sharply conflicting views. Some believe fervently that a human person comes into being at conception and that abortion ends an innocent life. Others feel just as strongly that any regulation of abortion invades a woman's right to control her own body and prevents women from achieving full equality. Still, others in a third group think that abortion should be allowed under some but not all circumstances, and those within this group hold a variety of views about the particular restrictions that should be implemented.
Should be imposed.
Oh, sorry, imposed.
And so I'm reading on, I think I'm on about page 40. And it
Mm-hmm.
is a nuanced approach to a topic. And so, of course, because I go down the rabbit trail,
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading the actual the Jane Roe who was at the heart of the initial
Mm-hmm.
hearing and decision, who had the baby that she was pregnant with at the time of Roe v. Wade.
Mm-hmm.
And later on in life, she recanted and said, I'm not for abortion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are
Yeah.
those who said that was a political move, and she was in favor of abortion. And
I mean, I think it's
this
perfectly okay for her to change her mind.
this whole thing is just, it's not about abortion; it's about politics.
Mm-hmm. And I would argue that it's also about states' rights as a whole.
Yes, over the
I think.
federal reach, but
Mm-hmm.
it's about politics. Even at the state level, it's about politics. That's one of the
Yeah.
things that makes me mad about it, is that it's not about abortion. It isn't about rights. It's
Mm-hmm.
about politics, and it's being used as a political football for old white guys in the halls of power in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a it is not a feminist, what's the word I want, anti-woman thing. It's about hanging on to power.
Yeah.
It, and the ones in power right now are old white guys, and it bothers me.
It is. I agree. I'm very bothered by the number of old white guys making decisions for a very broad spectrum of humans.
I was Ubering and lifting for a while, and I used to tell every kid who got in my car who was under the age of 30, you need to get
Mm-hmm.
involved in politics. I said, old
Mm-hmm.
guys are not going to like it. Old women are not going to like it. And that's okay. You still need to do it because
Hell, if anything, that should just spurn them on further to get more
it
involved.
should. It should.
Those old crusty folks don't like it. Stick
Yeah,
it to them.
there you go. And I, for one, I won't agree with you. By, I promise you, when it comes to abortion and gay
Mm-hmm.
rights and these sorts of things, I won't agree. My opinion won't be the same as yours, but that's okay.
I want when I say our country as if I'm American, but I want
Yeah, but your country too.
our yeah, I want our country's direction, whatever direction it may be, to actually be the will of the people. And the only way it's going to do that is if a younger generation that historically doesn't care about politics until they're into their middle age years, if they don't make their voices heard, we can't ever divine the actual direction this country wants to go.
I would agree with that. Holy cow.
Because I feel like even like I've kind of always been aware of politics. It's just growing as I get older. But a large number of people in my life didn't care a ton about politics until we get to this age, until we're at around 30 or so. And all of a sudden, we start to pay attention to it more. And I feel like that's just regarded as normal that in your 20s, you don't really worry about politics as much. You're either apolitical or you're like a hippie or big into activism. And I don't think that disparity needs to exist. I think it's possible to live a perfectly normal life but also be involved in political discussions.
I believe with the advent of COVID and the lockdowns and the mandates and everything is because we're seeing a new whole group of people who are getting involved in politics, and I think it's good
Mm-hmm.
as
I agree.
they're coming out of the woodwork and saying, "Hey, either I'm in support of this or I'm not in support of this. Except I'm going to get involved because I feel strongly about it." And it is if nothing else good came out of COVID. It woke up a generation,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a good thing.
And I would. This is one of the few times you'll ever see me extol the virtues of social media. As much as I don't like how much social media pushes kind of a FOMO level of activism, you know
Yeah,
what FOMO is?
yeah, it's the fear of missing
Yeah,
out. See, I am
yeah.
I am a dude. I'm a hip
You're
dude.
hip. Yeah. As much as I don't like how social media kind of incentivizes a FOMO uh, sort of FOMO activism,
Yeah,
do it for now while it's popular and then forget about it. I do like the fact that it does, even if only in short bursts, it engages the younger generation's brain into these political and societal issues. I
yeah,
like the fact that it at least gets them thinking about it. It may not necessarily be sticking long term, but it's planting the seeds, I
right.
think.
And I would agree. I think that there's a segment on Bill Maher.
Love Bill Maher.
I'm going to add it. I'm going to add it into the show notes. Actually, I'm going to add a link to in the show notes. It
Okay.
is this whole idea that YouTube and Facebook and Elon Musk at Twitter needs to be the censor for what goes out on these platforms
Mm.
is so wrong. He said, as adults, we just need to learn to have to be able to read and discern the bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is bullshit, then don't believe it. You know, there's my swear word for the week. It's
Yeah.
wake up, guys. If it's abortion, if it's COVID, if it is any one of the things that they use for divisive means.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that people are. I was reading a story on the Russian interference in the election for Trump,
Mm-hmm.
and it was interesting that not all of them were for Trump or for Hillary.
Yeah.
All they
Most
wanted,
of them are just
all they wanted to do
divisiveness. They
was
just wanted to
divide.
widen the
Yeah,
gap.
yeah,
Yeah.
divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer.
Mm-hmm.
Stop believing it. Like,
Yeah.
for heaven's sakes.
That's why I love seeing media like ours. That's why I loved being on the Blue Collar Philosophers podcast. Is
Oh,
any
don't get me
opportunity I can get.
going.
No, no, not about what we talked about, but just the act of being there, and the act of having these conversations with you. The act of wanting to have conversations about Roe v. Wade and all the fallout from this note from the Supreme Court, whatever. All the act of just
The
talking
opinion
about
from
it.
the
The
Supreme Court,
opinion.
the
Sorry,
opinion,
thank you. The
yes.
opinion. Just the act of talking about it in a civil manner, without vitriol, anything I can do to propagate that kind of environment, I will do, even if I'm doing it like uh, um, Van Jones, a guy we had a video a while back where
Yes.
we showcased a video that he had, and I
Yes.
really enjoy it. I'm looking forward to his podcast that's coming out right soon. He has a
Yes.
podcast coming out. And on another podcast that he was guesting on, he talked about how he doesn't care where he gets support when he's pushing for activism into something. Like, I can't think of any examples, but when he's trying to fix something within a neighborhood when he was younger, he didn't care where he got support. Like when it was when you went, okay, so an example was like wanting to build a prison near a community. He doesn't want more prisons to be filled up for profit.
Right.
And it didn't matter where he got the support. So he ended up getting support to kibosh this prison being built from the old white people that lived in the neighborhood next to it because they don't want a prison in their backyard. They don't care about who's getting imprisoned into it or the money or how that's happening. They just don't want a prison in their backyard because it looks bad. So he doesn't care why they don't want it.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It put them on the same page, even if just for a moment. And I feel like the more moments like that we can find, like in the video where he talked about how conservative families, like people who are very pro, the nuclear family,
Right.
a mom and a dad and kids, and LGBTQ couples who want to adopt, they should be the biggest allies. They just want to see families with two parents. Obviously, there's some bits that don't mix there, but just the idea of looking at an issue with a divide,
Right.
and rather than looking at this is the part that holds us apart, looking at where can we find little pieces of connective tissue to hold us together.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is such a monumentally more constructive way of looking at things.
I would agree. And for those of you who are looking at the Roe v. Wade and the overturning of Roe v. Wade, you know your hackles are getting up. Everybody on either side of this opinion right now, your hackles are up, and your danger antennae are on high. Regardless of what side you're on, you're just
danger.
You're quivering with tension. Relax. Just take a chill pill.
I don't know about relaxing, but
just don't get mad
it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good word. You need to channel your energy.
It's even okay to be mad, but it has to be more. Your anger has to be poured into something. It should be, not has to be, but should be poured into something constructive. And I think if you've got a fire in your belly because of the situation, don't look for more reasons to be divided. Look for reasons to be connected. Look for reasons to pull together.
Yes.
However that may be.
Yes.
I know it sounds kind of sappy and whatnot to say that, but I think that's just that mindset changes a lot.
This is one of those conversations where I think it would behoove all of us who have an opinion on this topic. You, we, I, how to go for coffee with a person who believes the exact opposite of us and just listen to them.
Yeah.
Not argue it, just listen to them, because I am sure they have a reason for why they believe what they believe, and I bet you they believe it's a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't all fairy tales and whatever goes along with fairy tales.
There's like this concept in, I want to say psychology. That's kind of a broad term, but there's this concept of I can't remember. I'm trying to remember exactly what it's called, but it's like spotlighting yourself, thinking that you're the center of the story,
Right.
thinking that you're the protagonist in your own story. But that tends to bleed into being the protagonist of everyone else's story. Teenagers kind of go through it as they develop an ego in their teenage years. And part of that is just thinking that the world revolves around them. And ideally, people grow out of that. And I feel like, I'm not saying that everyone who has a strong opinion thinks it, but I think that it kind of flips as well, is that we think that people who disagree with us, we tend to like think of them as Machiavellian, mustache twirling, conniving bastards, and some politicians are definitely that. But the majority of people, because politicians aren't really people,
I
The
will
majority of
agree with that
people,
wholeheartedly.
but the majority of people aren't twisting their mustache. People that disagree with you aren't sitting back twisting their mustaches. Wah ha 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 ha. We finally got it. There's like people on my social media that are happy with this Roe v. Wade situation. They're not like, haha, stick it to the libs. That's not the conversation. The conversation is, oh my god, thank goodness, so many babies are being saved.
Yes.
It's even if I don't agree with the ruling, I can't help but look at that and see that their intentions, even if I don't agree with them, like with the way in which they're getting there, their intentions are as pure as anyone else's. I think they're misguided, but that doesn't change the fact that their intentions are still good. They're not twirling their mustache. They're doing what they think is best.
I would agree.
And I think that also extends people on the left, people who the right think
I
we're
would
just being
agree.
stupid or having these outlandish ideas. We're trying to make life better for everyone. We're trying to make uh, uh, a more inclusive world, and it make the left obviously overreaches sometimes and has some really crazy ideas, but the
Well, you're
impetus
not the
behind
only
them is
one
to
with
make.
crazy ideas.
Oh yeah, we don't we don't have that market cornered by any stretch. But I just mean that like the impetus behind them on a ground level, the people, not the politicians, but the people, it's never virtually never malicious. There's no mustache twirling. There's no we got to get more pedophiles into girls' bathrooms by making them unisex. No, they want to make it more inclusive and welcoming for everyone. And the intentions there are good, and I think we need to spend a little bit more time appreciating people's good intentions and a little less time vilifying each other.
I'll sort of agree with that.
Keep
Not
throwing these really,
100%. Not
yeah.
100%, but that's okay.
There are people that are worth
Yes.
vilifying, but they're much rarer than I think we expect.
And there are topics which I think need more of a right and wrong approach. And the
There are
bathrooms,
some,
I
yeah.
think, is one of them where I think it could be. Um,
That was just an example I pulled out of a hat.
yeah, I know.
I don't want to look too deep into that as an example.
Um, one thing I want to touch on just a little bit. Um, is the idea of the the agreement with the topic.
Mm-hmm.
As we look at the COVID and we at the COVID, I sound like a Mennonite. We look at the automobile. We look at COVID. We look at we look we look at Roe v. Wade. We look at these huge topics, and they are big topics,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to be looked at. And but they need to have a conversation, and not one in the halls of power, except in our living room, in our churches, in our community halls. We need to have conversations about these things and not be looking at everybody and saying, you're wrong and I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not a conversation. And I think it's really important that as Americans and Canadians, and actually as citizens of the world, because it's a huge issue in the globe,
Mm-hmm.
as the U.S. is where people look at and say, you're sort of the elephant in the room, Americans, and you can't figure this stuff out. It is it it has a global impact.
Mm-hmm.
I
There
think I
was
think we need
a
a conversation.
yeah. I can't remember who it was. It was somebody I was listening to. I think it was in a philosophical debate of some sort. And when pointing out their goals in their opening statement, they pointed out that their goal of the debate, of this conversation, in this case, a big debate, wasn't to convince people that they were right and everyone else was wrong.
Right.
Their goal was for people to come away from that debate saying, I never thought of it like that.
Right.
That was that's the goal. That's like a pretty entry level thing. And I think that so many more conversations, both with intent to debate a topic and just in general, could be so much nicer if in the back of our head the goal of the conversation wasn't to convince another person that we're right.
That's true.
It was just to have both of us walk away saying, I never thought of it like that.
Right.
Even if it doesn't change your opinion. Just the idea of having to put your brain through the mental gymnastics of looking at something from a different perspective.
Right.
It's like Mom always said, our brains are like muscles, and you have to work them to keep them sharp.
And you're bringing your
Thanks,
mother
Mom.
into an episode of Will and Dave Show on Mother's Day. I'm impressed. And that was organic, too.
Segued right into that one.
That's right. Well, William, we should wrap up. We're getting near to an hour. Is there any hope of getting the philosopher, blue collar freaks of nature, whoever interviewed you on their podcast? Is there any hope of getting them on the show?
I don't know. I'd have to ask them. I certainly can.
You should ask them. We might want to ask them to avoid use of the C word and the MF word and a few of those others.
We will have a chat about that just because of us being on a different platform than them.
And then they'll probably want to do it just to push my buttons. So so that will be the show where we will have a content advisory before the show, a trigger warning, which we sort of gotten away from. You may not want to watch that episode if you worry about language, because it will have some, because I know the three of you when you get together. And
it's only happened once. Who knows?
Yeah, I know. I know the three. I know two of the three. Ay. So,
we'll see what we can do.
Apropos of nothing.
That's a good word.
We were sitting around the table today discussing what game we should play. So we decided, hey, let's have a game of Rook, because it was Allison and Alex and your mom and I. And we had almost forgotten how to play. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. We're sitting around what's a high bid? What's a low bid? It took us a little while to get in the scheme of things. So
it took me a while to get back. I was playing blackjack with some folks, and it's been a hot minute since I played blackjack.
Oh man, that's a great game.
I had to try and remember whether to hit or stand.
Were you playing for money?
I think we had $5. I think we just had, like, I had a chip set and everyone just put in $5, and whoever was last man standing got the $5.
And did you win?
Yes. I'm trying to think, because I've done a couple of card nights lately, and I did win that one. Yeah.
Did you hit or stand on 16? What did you do?
I picked to hit on 16s. It doesn't matter which one you do, as long as you just pick one and stick to it.
Stick to it all the time.
So I stuck to hitting 16s, and it didn't serve me well. But
that's why I stand on 16s, because I find it helps me slightly more often than hitting 16s.
I'm pretty sure I split some things that I shouldn't have split.
What did you split?
Probably split 10s a couple of times.
You're a Dumas.
I know. I got greedy.
And did it work for you?
In card games, I tend to get greedy. I don't remember if the splits really worked in my favor.
So I will say this, actually, as I have split 10s, and I count myself as an above average blackjack player. If you're playing with a single deck and you're counting cards.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay to.
That's probably why I won.
It's okay to split 10s if you're getting near the deck.
Just knowing what break cards are, I had a leg up on a couple of the guys I was playing with, just because I knew what break cards were.
If you don't know what break cards is, you shouldn't play for money.
Yeah.
And if you do play for money, you deserve to lose.
Please play against me.
That's right.
Please play against me. Because those are moments when I'll split 10s. Is like, dealer's got a 6. I'm splitting those 10s, boyo.
No,
I'm splitting them.
No, that's when you don't, because you have a sure win, you Dumas.
This is true. But I was ahead.
Speaking of Dumas,
I tend to get cocky. Yeah.
Have you ever seen the commercial for Dumas?
I think you showed it to me.
I think it was an A&W commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next week of the show, I'm going to find the commercial. We're going to play it. We'll probably get a copyright strike, but that's okay.
Beautiful.
We're going to play it because. So the other day I was at work, and I work at a church, and somebody came up to me and they said something stupid. I said, "Stop being a Dumas," and they looked at me like, "What?" I said, don't be a Dumas. And they look, what do you mean? So I had to play the commercial for them to
Dumas.
explain. I may or may
Perfect.
not have lightning strike my bald spot in the back.
uh,
William, do you have anything to say to our